Hello everyone and welcome back to Local Liberty. This is Brian Saucier. Now that we've laid out some of the uses of the word homesteading, and we are going to talk about in pretty good detail the third type, which would be the sort of modern version of some form of self-sufficient living. And this is something that my family has been learning how to do to whatever degree makes sense for us for the past 10 years or so. We have learned quite a bit about things like gardening, fruit trees, raising chickens, heating with firewood, just kind of general rural small farm type living. We learned a ton from the internet. We learned a lot from some local folks that we met, and this series of episodes is going to be about returning some of that information out there and hopefully adding some of our knowledge. And what I hope at the end of this series people will find useful is a lot of our gardening information that we've built over the years. Things like these types of tables that have a lot of the vegetables that we have found come to grow very well in our area. So before we dive into that, and actually in addition to that detailed information, I'm going to start with just a basic primer on the basics of gardening, that it'll be review for anybody that has done this before, but it's something I enjoy talking about, and I'm happy to start from the basics and give people some of the initial information you might need to get going in your own garden. So before we dive into that, I just want to give a quick note, since we like to talk about things like economics and other topics on this show. When I talk about self-sufficient living, for me and my family, we're not talking about living in isolation. We're not talking about being a hermit, and that's because one that doesn't make a whole lot of sense in today's world. Although some people do attempt it and some people do attain it, but that's not what we're trying to do. And from a pure economic standpoint, the term is division of labor, and I am a big fan of that term. Now, when I first started getting into homesteading, I actually found one of those original books this morning. I was looking at it with my son. And I remember I used to dream about, the day I'm going to quit my job and I'm just going to live off the land and it's going to be great. And then, I started we started getting into some fairly decent scale gardening. We started growing lots of food. And then I continued in my career, in my professional life. And then things started, adding up in my head like, man, I'm going to have to grow a lot of tomatoes to maintain the style of living that we're used to. And it's not that we live in any extravagant fashion. It's just the reality slowly began to dawn on me, even before I started learning about economics, of what the reality of the division of labor is. And it means specialization. What it means is we are all going to be far wealthier. That's why the division of labor occurred many, many thousands of years ago, and continues to this day, and has exploded in the last couple hundred years, and now we have a global economy. It's because it just is more efficient. It produces better results more quickly, and we're all richer for it. So my version of homesteading is not, mountain man, hermit style living in isolation. My version is going to be a more a slightly less specialized life. You do more things for yourself for lots of reasons besides just dollar value. Some reasons like just plain old variety. Variety is the spice of life. I think our love of the division of labor sometimes gets taken too far, and people become miserable because they do nothing but their one, I'm really good at typing on a keyboard doing this or that, and that's all I do, and it's all I ever do. And then you get sort of trapped, and that's your one specialization. You don't know how to do anything else. And some folks love it. They can do that for 45 years and retire. And other folks, it just makes them miserable. And then just for me, I've always kind of been drawn to natural things and to growing. So that's where and I consider it way more than a hobby, but that's where my interests have diverged. And it's where it allows me to, one, achieve a measure of self-sufficiency that I value in and of itself. I don't like being dependent on distant, complicated systems any more than I have to. But it also has health benefits that I'm very keen on. Getting exercise. I work in IT, so I get very little exercise besides all the stuff I do on the farm. So that's just a little bit about the background of our reasons for homesteading and what the term means in particular to us. In the next segments, we're going to dive into some of the basics of gardening and then talk a little bit about what kind of vegetables can be grown around here and where to get them. And then in the final episode, I'm going to start talking about some of the local details. If you're already an experienced gardener, you'll probably will want to skip right to episode number 5. So thanks for listening, everybody. And this has been Brian Saucer at Local Liberty. Check us out on YouTube and Facebook, Local Liberty, 2 words. Take care.